Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Authorities in Sacramento, California released horrifying surveillance camera footage this week. Video which they say shows the chilling moments a homeless woman was recently set on fire by a female suspect. The whole thing took place a few weeks ago on the night of April 26th. However, it wasn't until this week that the alleged perpetrator could be identified. In the clip that was released by authorities, you can see a driver, now identified as 34-year-old Jacqueline Papa Ibarra, traveling down a street shortly before 9:30 p.m. Suddenly, she makes a U-turn and pulls over on the other side of the road. A short time later, she gets out of the vehicle. After calmly walking over to a 49-year-old sleeping homeless woman, she allegedly douses her in an accelerant and sets her ablaze. As disturbing as this already was, according to police, Papa Ibarra wasn't in any hurry to leave the scene. While the unidentified woman was covered in flames and in excruciating pain, the 34-year-old reportedly stayed behind to argue with another person before taking the time to kick the victim. Only then did she flee the scene. Miraculously, the 49-year-old survived the ordeal, though suffered severe burns to roughly a third of her body. Doctors say she sustained burns to her face, torso, arms, and back, and needed to be intubated at the hospital for more than 2 weeks. It was only on May 13th that she was finally well enough to speak to investigators. That's when she apparently helped to identify her attacker. According to reports, Papa Ibarra knew the victim, though the motive behind the crime still has not been revealed. Police say that she is not homeless, and that by the time she was connected to the incident, she was already in custody on an unrelated robbery charge. She is now facing additional charges, including assault with a deadly weapon, arson causing great bodily injury, and mayhem. An unusual case out of Meigs County, Ohio, ended with an even more unusual mugshot last week when police announced an arrest in the mysterious murder of a local Amish woman. The case began more than 2 months ago on March 13th when police were alerted to a disturbing discovery inside of a home on Dye Road, just outside the village of Rutland. A man named Mose Troyer said that he and other members of an Amish community had been concerned about one of their fellow members, 28-year-old Rosanna Kinzinger. After no one had seen Rosanna at all that day, Mose went to check on her. Upon entering the home, he found her dead inside. The only other thing there was Rosanna's goat. Police launched an investigation. However, initially Rosanna's autopsy results were inconclusive. Still, authorities believed the death was suspicious and continued looking into the situation as a potential homicide. While they have remained fairly tight-lipped about the whole thing overall, it seems that their tireless efforts paid off, because last week they announced that a suspect had officially been arrested in connection with Rosanna's murder. That suspect, Samuel Hochstetler, is also said to be a member of the Amish community, though a relative newcomer. According to the same man that found Rosanna, Hochstetler is originally from Kentucky, but had been living with him for the past few months. Unfortunately, because police haven't released many additional details, we still don't know anything about how Rosanna was actually killed or what the suspected motive was. What we do know, though, is that Hochstetler remains in custody and has now been charged with murder. Authorities in San Antonio, Texas say that a local mother is facing charges this week after she was accused of facilitating and encouraging her young teenage son's obsession with acts of mass violence targeting his middle school. According to reports, the whole situation first came to the attention of police several months ago when they began receiving calls from officials at Jeremiah Rhodes Middle School. Staff said that they were having ongoing issues with a 13-year-old student there. The unidentified boy appeared to be obsessed with mass shootings and was exhibiting a variety of concerning behaviors. For example, in January, a staff member had found the 13-year-old working on a hand-drawn map of the school campus. Next to the name of the school was an illustration of a rifle, along with the words, "suicide route." School officials said that they had spoken to the boy's mother, 33-year-old Ashley Pardo, multiple times, but this hadn't helped. Not only had Pardo said she wasn't concerned, she reportedly told them that she supported her son's, quote, violent expressions and drawings. In April, the 13-year-old was suspended after he was found using a school computer to research the 2019 New Zealand mosque shooting. The man behind the attack was reportedly one of the people that the teen particularly idolized. Though the boy attended an alternative school for several weeks, he was allowed to return on May 8th. However, on May 12th, just his third day back, police received a call from his grandmother. The grandmother told authorities she had learned that the 13-year-old's mother had been buying him ammunition and tactical gear, including a vest, helmet, and camouflage clothing. That day, she had found him playing with a live round by striking it with a hammer. When she went into her grandson's room, she made more unsettling discoveries. She said there were loaded magazines there, an explosive device with a potential target's name written on it, Nazi symbols, and handwritten notes talking about previous mass shootings. She said she had called that morning because before her grandson had been picked up by his mother for school, he told her he was, quote, going to be famous. According to police, around the same time of this phone call, they began receiving other calls from the middle school, which seemed to corroborate the grandmother's story. Staff told them that the 13-year-old had been seen briefly on campus wearing a camouflage jacket, pants, and a mask. By the time officers responded, the boy was gone, but he was reportedly tracked down and arrested shortly thereafter. So was his mother, Ashley Pardo, who apparently admitted to buying the ammunition and gear for her son. According to police, she still claimed she had no concerns about her son's behavior and said that the items were a reward for him babysitting his younger siblings. At the time of this recording, the 13-year-old remains in custody on a terrorism charge. Pardo, meanwhile, was charged with aiding in the commission of terrorism, but was released after posting $75,000 bond. Representatives from the New York State Police say that an Orange County town official was recently arrested and is now facing several charges following a truly unhinged incident in which he allegedly opened fire on a food delivery worker who had come to his door to ask for directions. The whole thing happened on the evening of May 2nd when the driver in question, an unidentified 24-year-old man, was in the middle of doing deliveries for DoorDash. One of those deliveries apparently took him out into a rural area of the town of Chester, where he ran into a problem. Before he could complete the order he was working on, his phone ran out of battery. So not only did he not know who he was supposed to deliver to, he wasn't sure how to get home. Adding to the man's confusion is the fact that he is a newcomer to the United States. According to his family, he only moved there a few months ago to be with his siblings, and is originally from West Africa. Unsure what to do, the 24-year-old pulled into one of the rural neighborhoods where he had been driving and began going door to door asking people if they had ordered food. He also tried asking them for directions and said that he needed help getting home. Unfortunately for the 24-year-old, though, completing his DoorDash delivery would soon be the least of his worries, because after walking up to one home in particular, this is what happened.
Go!
The homeowner in the surveillance camera footage is 48-year-old John J. Riley III, who also happens to be an elected highway superintendent in Chester. When he was asked by the driver for directions, Riley immediately told him to get off his property before retrieving a weapon and opening fire at him before he was able to do so. As you just saw in the footage, Riley shot at least 3 times at the 24-year-old, who was hit in the back by one of the rounds. After being wounded, the 24-year-old was reportedly terrified for his life and continued driving until he eventually found his way home. His family members say he collapsed there, which is when they called 911. Fortunately, the man did not suffer life-threatening injuries, though he did reportedly require surgery. Riley was later arrested and has now been charged with first-degree assault, second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, and criminal possession of a firearm. Adding to the craziness of the situation, on top of being a town official, according to local media sources, Riley is a federally licensed firearms dealer. At the moment, he has not given any indication that he plans to step down from his elected role. Authorities in the town of Colchester, Vermont say that a local man is facing charges this week after he was accused of brutally stabbing a woman to death just minutes after he lured her to his home. The whole thing began on the afternoon of May 8th when the suspect, 27-year-old Elijah Campagna, hired the female victim through an online escort service. When she was dropped off around 4:45 p.m. and entered Campagna's house on Florence Drive, he reportedly told her he didn't have any money. He claimed he didn't want sex though, stating he just wanted to talk. However, when the woman got up and tried to leave, things turned violent. At approximately 5:20 p.m., police were called to the scene by a man named Tony Kanga. According to local media sources, Tony is Campagna's live-in caretaker. He said that he had been in the lower part of the house when he heard screams and banging coming from upstairs. When he went to investigate, he found the door to Campagna's room locked. As Tony was looking for something to force the door open, the 27-year-old came out covered in blood. When officers arrived at the scene, they found the body of the female victim inside. Her mouth had been duct taped, she had been stabbed multiple times with a pocket knife, and her throat was cut. The woman has since been identified as a 24-year-old from the neighboring town of Milton, named Haley Collier. Upon being arrested at the scene, Campagna reportedly admitted to killing Haley, saying, quote, "I did it. It's wrong. I shouldn't have done it." According to police, Campagna was already on parole at the time of the incident for a prior assault conviction from earlier this year. As for why he was unsupervised when the killing occurred, apparently even though he has a live-in caretaker, Campagna is still considered independent. That means he can be alone for up to 30 hours at a time. On top of this, Tony had only become the 27-year-old's caretaker less than a month ago. Campagna is now facing first-degree murder charges and has pleaded not guilty. He remains in custody. A Nebraska Star Wars enthusiast apparently role-played himself right into jail recently after he was allegedly involved in an unhinged episode targeting his neighbors, though he didn't so much use the Force, just regular Force. According to reports, it all unfolded last month on the evening of April 28th when a group of kids were playing outside in the city of Auburn. That's when the suspect, 25-year-old Aiden Orion White, went up to them wielding a toy lightsaber. Moments later, he allegedly hit a 7-year-old girl who also happened to be his neighbor. As you might imagine, when the girl ran crying back to her mom, 37-year-old Sandra Lunn's man, she wasn't too happy. However, when she attempted to confront White, his Jedi-themed rampage only continued. Before charging at and striking her multiple times with the lightsaber as well, White reportedly yelled, quote, "I'm not in the mood. Get back in your f***ing house." When police were called, White reportedly spoke to them quite calmly and seemed apologetic, though he apparently couldn't help but get angry when he started talking about his neighbors. In a report about the incident, officers noted that the 25-year-old would, quote, "have profane and angry outbursts." He supposedly blamed Sandra and her family for his rent recently going up, and also threatened that they would have future problems. Perhaps the most bizarre part of the report concerns the lightsaber itself, though, which authorities seem to stress was not merely a toy. I mean, it was a toy in the sense that all lightsabers are toys because they don't really exist, but I think what they were getting at was more that it was quite hefty. Specifically, the report describes it as a, quote, "higher quality device, approximately 3.5 feet long, constructed of metal and thick plastic." A deputy further noted that the lightsaber could, quote, "cause significant pain and injury when used to strike an individual." When it was all over, Aiden White was arrested and charged with 2 felony assault counts. The 25-year-old was held in lieu of $50,000 bail, and according to reports, his lightsaber was seized. Perhaps unsurprisingly, a judge also ordered that he undergo a mental competency evaluation. Authorities in Baltimore County, Maryland, say that a Pennsylvania man is facing several new serious charges this week, nearly 2 months after he was accused of other crimes when he was caught driving around with the body of his deceased mother. The whole thing began shortly before 3 p.m. on March 24th, when police in the borough of Manheim, Pennsylvania, received a call from a local woman. The woman stated that her brother, 31-year-old Kevin On, had shown up at her residence on the 100 block of Fruitville Pike unannounced. The woman said that she and Kevin were estranged, and that the last time she'd heard from him, he was homeless. He was not generally welcome at her address, but he had shown up that afternoon driving their mom's Toyota RAV4 and acting strangely. According to reports, when officers initially showed up, Kevin had left, but they were soon forced to respond to the home again after they received another call from Kevin's sister. This time, she said she'd found something that they needed to take a look at. During the second visit, the woman explained that her brother had returned to her property at around 3:30. When he did, she and her husband went to confront him. But as they got closer to the vehicle, they saw something awful. There was an unresponsive person lying across the rear seats and floor of the RAV4. They were covered with boxes, fast food wrappers, and several household goods. The woman said that when she asked Kevin about what this was, he took off on foot. Upon further investigation of the vehicle, police found a chilling note that had been left on the dashboard. It read, quote, "Mom is in car. I'm sorry. Please give her a funeral. My brain is fried. My mom lied. She gave me fake money from the NA. So did my employees. I lost my mind. Forgive me. Please call my sister." An autopsy on the body in the back of the vehicle revealed that these were indeed the remains of Kevin and his sister's mother, Quinn Ahn. It was concluded that she had died from strangulation in conjunction with a traumatic brain injury and had been dead for between 30 and 40 hours when she was found. Her death was also ruled a homicide. When Kevin was later tracked down, he was arrested and charged with abuse of a corpse. However, after several more weeks of investigation, police say he is now facing several charges in Maryland as well. According to a statement released this week, Quinn Ahn lived in the community of Owings Mills, Maryland, and was with her son directly before her murder. Surveillance video apparently shows them together in her vehicle roughly 48 hours before her remains were discovered. At the time, one of them was recorded going into a store while the other remained in the car. While the circumstances surrounding the alleged killing, as well as the motive, largely still remain a mystery at this time, Baltimore County investigators have now charged Kevin Ahn with multiple counts of first-degree murder and first-degree assault. As if the case couldn't get any darker or stranger, multiple media sources are now pointing to a bizarre argument made in court by Kevin's lawyer in the Pennsylvania portion of the case. According to reports, not only did the lawyer argue that there was no evidence of abuse of Quinn's body, but that Kevin covering her in garbage was actually somehow meant to be a sign of respect. The lawyer stated in part, quote, "This display could have been an eccentricity akin to dressing up a skeleton." At the time of this recording, Kevin Ahn remains in custody. The loved ones of a Nebraska family are calling for reform of the mental health care system this week, after a man allegedly killed his wife and 2 teenage sons before turning his weapon on himself, just hours before they were supposed to celebrate what should have been a happy milestone. The devastating situation was uncovered on the morning of May 10th, when officers from the Dawson County Sheriff's Office were called to a home on Johnson Lake. When they arrived shortly after 9:30 and entered the residence, they encountered an awful scene. All 4 of the people that lived there were dead. They were quickly identified as the Coe family, 42-year-old father Jeremy, 41-year-old mother Bailey, and their 2 sons, 18-year-old Hunter and 16-year-old Asher. All of them had suffered knife wounds, and it's now believed that Jeremy killed his wife and 2 sons before turning the weapon on himself as well. Making matters even more gut-wrenching, the family was supposed to attend Hunter's high school graduation later that same day. While almost no additional information has been released about the actual incident, and the investigation has been taken over by the Nebraska State Patrol, we do have some insight into what was going on in the Coe family in the lead up to the tragedy. Heartbreakingly, much of this information comes directly from the victims themselves, particularly Bailey, who had been chronicling Jeremy's struggle with mental health issues for years. On a Facebook page she created called Anchoring Hope for Mental Health, Jeremy and Bailey Coe, Bailey documented the devastating impact that Jeremy's severe depression and other problems had had on him and their family, as well as their never-ending search for effective treatments. Despite the often harrowing nature of her uploads, though, Bailey's goal was one of optimism and change. She hoped that by providing a very honest and unfiltered look at what her and her family were going through, they could help others in similar situations, and also spark broader change within the mental health system. In the days leading up to her and her family's deaths, Bailey had been very open about the fact that they were struggling. She said that while Jeremy had been released from a hospital to attend Hunter's graduation, he was not responding well to his new medication. However, she said that she had submitted an application for a new type of treatment and that she was hopeful. In a joint statement released by both Bailey and Jeremy's families this week, they shared their anger and frustration over the general state of the mental health care system and the lack of resources available to families in need. Their statement reads in part, quote, "Jeremy had been fighting mental illness for many, many years. His depression had turned into psychosis. It was not Jeremy that committed this horrific act. It was a sick mind. Bailey fought so hard to help him, and she and her sons lived in fear of the possibility of losing her husband and their father to mental illness for many years. They never knew when he would be in a manic state, super high, or horribly depressed, super low, unable to function normally. Bailey and Jeremy spent years and years seeking help and answers to Jeremy's condition. Doctor after doctor, hospital after hospital, medication after medication, therapy after therapy, treatment after treatment. This country's mental health care is a disaster, a catastrophe, broken, and it's not getting any better, it's getting worse. Far too many diseased minds have nowhere to go. Yes, there is some help that can be tapped, but not near enough. And the truth is, their hands are tied with regulations and insurance companies that don't pay enough to cover cost or research. There is nowhere near enough research. There is nowhere near enough money, facilities, or resources available. We can make a difference. Bailey believed that with all her heart. We can help our fellow human beings. Don't give up. Bailey didn't. Right up to her last breath. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much, everyone, and take care.